Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission.
Welcome everyone. Those of you who are watching the live broadcast, excited to be here on Blab. I'm here with David Pope. He is from Issachar Initiative, the Director of Global Research for Issachar Initiative, Count for Zero organization. If you're not one already, you need to become one. And Mr. Pope is the man to talk to learn how to count for zero. For those who've never heard the gospel, zero churches, zero Christians, zero missionaries, zero access to the gospel, and organizations working in the 1040 window. This would be a great conversation, what it means to count for zero. So welcome, David. Great to have you.
Hi, thanks, Dave. It's good to be with you today.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. David Pope. I'm the Director of Global Research for the Issachar Initiative. Issachar was started about 3 or 4 years ago with the purpose of bringing awareness to finishing the task, getting the gospel to all those people groups in the earth that haven't heard it yet.
Yep.
Issachar grew out of Table 71. Some people may remember Amsterdam 2000. And at that meeting, a challenge was given to take the gospel to the remaining people groups that haven't yet been engaged with the gospel. And there was one table, Table 71, that took up that charge. And the group of men that began to meet at that time have continued to meet for 15 years regularly. Out of those meetings about 3 or 4 years ago, Paul Escherman, our president, Paul was the gentleman that God used with Bill Bright to produce the Jesus film.
Great, yes. Which has changed the world.
It has changed the world. It got together with some businessmen and started what was called the Issachar Initiative, to find the passage in 1 Chronicles 12:32, where the men of Issachar had come to basically inaugurate David as king over Israel. And the unusual thing was there was only 200 that they sent, but they said they were men who understood the times and knew what Israel had to do. And so out of Issachar was the idea to bring together ministry and marketplace leaders, with emphasis on marketplace, to highlight the need and get their involvement and get them behind the task of focusing on 5 of the currently most strategic elements of the Great Commission.
Yeah.
Those were identified as scripture translation and distribution, unreached, unengaged people group, which Ralph Winter had championed in the past. Bring that to the forefront, keep it in front of people. That had already been a focus of some, but to get it in front of the marketplace.
Yes.
3 other elements of evangelism, orality, and then church planting. And those 5 elements, and get those in front of people. Well, after about 20 years in the pastoral ministry, myself personally, I had entered and gone overseas and served overseas in West Africa as a missionary. Come back. Where
in West Africa?
Burkina Faso.
Oh, great. Okay.
Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire.
Okay.
And so while I was there, just really had a heart and a burden for getting the gospel to unengaged people groups.
Yes.
I was part of a team that was trying to get the gospel to 156 micro people groups in about half of West Africa. So that was my goal. Those people groups that were hidden and under the radar.
Yes. Yeah. That's our passion as well.
Yeah. So small, no one was really focusing.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to focus when you see great growth and expanse in a larger, more populated area, but those smaller ones slip through the cracks of our evangelistic efforts, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so came back from that, my time overseas, and began to work with another ministry called Reach the Rest.
Oh, yes. I've been on their website just recently.
Yeah. Focusing on trying to create partnerships, expanding and working there. And then in June of this year, began to work with Issachar because there was a need for bringing together the research organizations. There's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of different research organizations.
Yeah.
And
Joshua Project.
Joshua Project, Global Research Department of the International Mission Board.
Yes.
Finished the task, and then 2 or 3 others.
Yes.
And so, just trying to bring some sense. I mean, as a
Sure.
user, as a field guy like you, from my part, looking at all of that can be confusing sometimes, right?
I agree. For many years, I'm excited about it. I'm passionate about it, and basically lived on Joshua Project. But when the reality rubber hits the road, where are these people? How do you find them? And where does the actual breakthrough begin and end? Right.
Well, and one of the big task that's been in front of us for a while is getting the gospel to every people group.
Yes.
Identifying those that what we deem, what we consider to be unengaged. And so
Yes.
with count for 0, the idea was to have 0 unengaged people groups around the world.
Great.
Well,
Yes.
when they started with this, there probably were identified out of the, let's say, 11 to 12,000 people groups on the face of the earth, there were probably about 4,000. I like to work in general numbers because these fluctuate. There were probably about 4,000 people groups that there was not an intentional replicating church planting movement being implemented. There was nothing it wasn't intentional. There might have been some church planting. There might even be some belief, but no one was seeking to replicate disciples, leaders, and churches.
So that's what you're talking about when you say unengaged, right? I mean, you have unreached people groups, and there's maybe, let's say, 6,000 unreached, but those who are not even targeting many of those people groups, there's, like you said, 3, maybe 4,000, depending on which website you go to, right?
Yeah, sometimes people will say, and I think wrongly, sometimes people will say, well, they're not a missionary, no gospel witness, things like that about an unengaged people group. That may be true, but it's also possible that there's a believer.
Sure.
Or 2 or 3.
But that doesn't mean that one person can go and see multiple churches planted and replicate without all the access to the gospel that they don't even have, right?
Exactly. And so when they began to count probably about 15 years ago, there were probably somewhere around 4,000. Well, interestingly, finishing the task right now states that they're probably around 1,500.
1,500? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously it depends on the definition that we're creating to clarify how many unreached people or unengaged people groups there are, and there are different numbers. But basically, I think what you're saying, David, is there's rapid progress, and we are reaching those unreached and unengaged.
We're moving towards 0. And probably for the first time in history, we can say 5 to 10 years from now, we think we could see a 0 in the unengaged people group. Now, people say, well, okay, so are we done? Well, no. I like what Paul Eschman says. He says it's the beginning of the finish.
I like that. I like that article. I love that. Yeah, well, it's just when we show up does not mean the job is finished. Jesus called us to make disciples, right? Not just to bring an evangelistic witness. And often the problem is, I mean, for the last 20 years, I've been traveling to these villages and walk in and say, 你们这儿有没有听说过耶稣 in Chinese? Have you ever heard of Jesus? If there's no concept of Jesus, it is a task and a process to grow someone in their new faith, rather than you have to bring that contextualized gospel in a way that they can understand and then replicate, make disciples of their own.
Yeah, as I said a minute ago, I mean, there needs to be a methodology that absolutely, you can look at it and say you are replicating disciples, leaders, and churches. Because if you're not replicating leaders, then it's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
If you're not replicating churches, then you're not being biblical. I mean, you need to be replicating congregations.
Yeah. And again, that's what I love about Issachar Initiative. You go back to your conversation about intentional. If there's one thing that I find that Issachar Initiative is, it's intentional. Within ReachGlobal.org, within Reach Global, our organization has been a Count for Zero organization for a year and a half, 2 years now. And
you're 2 years old, so great.
yeah, I'm proud to have that Count for Zero stamp on our website and be in partnership with Issachar Initiative. Actually, if you check out the above link, Issacharinitiative.org/ count/organizations is just above there. You could check out all these different organizations. How many organizations are partnered together with you now? Do you know?
Well, the Count for Zero organization, somewhere between 200 and 300 Count for Zero organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Finishing the Task, which is a partnership organization with Issachar, they number well over 1,200 organizations that have signed up. But again, of those, there's probably 200 to 300 that are effectively really working to make a difference and try to get the numbers to zero.
And again, that intentionality, right? I love that about Issachar Initiative.
Well, I mean, again, Paul Eshelman.
Well,
Paul if nothing else is intentional about this. To the point of everywhere he goes, it's like, hey, wait a minute, let me play one song for you.
Yeah.
but keeping it in front of people, you have to keep it in front of people.
Yes,
because
I agree.
We can get distracted by, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but by the compassion ministries and relief ministries. There's so many things out there that vie for our attention. It's easy to be distracted, and so we're not trying to say that those things are wrong. In fact, I've said many times, that the guy, I'm sitting in Georgia right now talking to you, and the guy across the street from me, he's just as lost as the guy overseas in China.
Yeah,
they both need Jesus really badly, but
But I think the clarification we need to be talking about here, for those who are watching, those who are going to watch the replay, what it means to count for zero in the Issachar Initiative or within Reach Global aspect is that, yes, there's massive lostness, there's great need, there's people who are unevangelized or don't understand the gospel, but we're talking about the 1040 window, the area of the world, 10 to 40 degrees latitude across Muslim, Islamic, Hindu, and unaffiliated blocks of people who have never, ever once in their life and will never meet a Christian, hear the gospel, read a Bible. And so when we're talking unreached people groups, unengaged people groups, we're not saying, I hear often, I'm sure you do too, well, there's unreached people groups in my neighborhood. Well, there are no unreached people groups in America unless they've migrated to us, because we're not talking about subgroups like coffee connoisseurs and hackers, right? We're talking about ethno-linguistic people groups and tribes who haven't had a chance.
We know how much you need Jesus, those coffee connoisseurs.
Yeah, I'm feeling persecution from the Starbucks red cups here, right?
There you go. Don't do that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it's absolutely, it's an access issue. It's an access. And we just believe that, we talk about zero languages without the Bible, or at least the New Testament in their heart language. We want to get there. Right now, there's probably about 1,800 languages that still don't have anything, and nothing's begun. That need translation work to begin.
Yeah, and that takes time. It takes effort.
Yeah, there's some cool things happening. Rapidly speeding up that process that used to take a lifetime to do one Bible. Now those things going to be coming down. So we're advancing that a lot more quickly, and now people are actually talking about getting to zero.
And I think it's possible now, because through Issachar Initiative, you have all these organizations that share a similar passion, but have different giftings or callings. You got Bible translators, orality people, and here, let me just check. I'm on the website now. I'm just going to go one by one. The Count for Zero organizations on Issachar Initiative, the requirements is that you're actively doing one of these things: scripture, that is probably translation, etc. And it goes many, many different directions after that, of course. Disciple makers to unreached or unengaged people groups. Actually, there it is within Reach Global. Again, I'm proud to have it there on the bottom under W. Evangelism, going to those areas that have never heard. Orality or oral tools, that's a huge one in these cultures that communicate, if they don't have a written language. Stories of generations are retold. And then lastly, church planting and presence. And so I think the whole goal of this comes back to, you could say, Revelation 7:9. All the nations, tribes, languages, all these ethno-linguistic people groups and tribes are there standing before the throne. And at this point, the gospel is only good news if it gets there in time, and there are many people who have yet to hear.
That's exactly right. That's, I did a research is part of what I do, obviously, and so I just did a look. I said, how many people groups are actually listed? The Global Research Department does a good job of tracking these things. And how many people groups don't list a single believer? And so if you were to ask yourself, if we were trying to fulfill Matthew 24:14, when the gospel has been proclaimed to every people group, every nation, then the end will come. Jesus said that. And that's why we talked, that's the beginning of the finish. But if we were looking at that and we said, okay, who has not had the gospel proclaimed to them yet?
Yeah.
Well, we don't know, but we could say if they don't list a single believer, then let's say that's the number of people groups, the number of nations. That number, interestingly, is probably somewhere around 800 people groups that don't list a single believer on the face of the earth. So, how close are we?
Yeah,
how close are we to the beginning of the finish?
Well, it's 2015, and I'm talking to you across the world with people around the world. Why is it that we can't accomplish this with modern technology and the dollars that we have in the church, right?
Well, the intentionality that Issachar has helped to bring is really making a difference, and it's starting to raise awareness. And it's not just in our world, the ministry world, the missional world, but as I said, in the marketplace, people that are getting interested, smart people that know how to scale things, people that know how to grow things are saying, look, can we bring our expertise into this?
Yeah, I like that.
And let's get the gospel where it isn't. Let's get it there.
Yes.
And technology, mobile phones, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's really taking the gospel everywhere. A great thing that's happened with the Jesus Film Project and their new app. They've just now the app is available in 6 languages.
Cool. Okay. Well, we'll go check that out. I'll try to put a link here. But before I do, for those of you who are watching, what it means to count for zero, I'm here with David Pope from Issachar Initiative. And if you would like to chat on the side, you could. Oh, Stephen Bate just joined, looks like. Welcome. So you can leave a message there in the sidebar. We actually have an open seat. If you share a similar passion for unreached, unengaged people groups, or maybe you're completely confused about what we're talking about, feel free, on a related subject, call in. You could also, by the way, I'm clicking David's face here, giving him some props. Means basically you agree with what he's saying or appreciate what he's saying. So, getting back to it, I see. There's 2 ways to look at it. You can see the kind of dismal side of the reality of unreached people groups and say, well, there are still, let's say, 6,000 unreached people groups, 3,000 to 4,000 unengaged. You just mentioned slightly different numbers, well, drastically different numbers. Or you could step back and say, Lord, I'm a small part of the big thing you're doing. Even when the missionary gets a flat tire, you supersede our ways and you know all things. However, I think the whole point of this is that we are called to be advocates for those who have no voice. We are called to be advocates for the remaining peoples who never had a chance, and have conversations about this during Sunday morning from the pulpit in small groups. I mean, we have to talk about those who have never, ever had access to the gospel. Your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. It needs to be on the lips of every believer.
Sure.
The minds of every believer. It'd be great if we could get into the conversation. I mean, we're in an increasingly globalized culture.
Yes.
I mean, instantaneously, we know what happened in Paris. We know we're watching real time things that are happening. So I think people are more aware of what's going on around the world. There's so many new online news and web presence with the news. I think that's helping, but we need people to talk about it. We need people and we need people to get involved. I mean, the old three, the big three: pray, give, and go.
Yes.
We need people to mobilize prayer. Joshua Project has some great prayer tools. People can give to this, and it's remarkable when you start partnering with nationals to work, how actually cost-effective church planting and engagement of people groups can be. It really is, and everything is driving the cost of engagement down.
Yes.
And so that's helping. Go ahead.
Yes, and then I've noticed recent trends. Things do come in trends. They come, and we're very excited about it, and yet we're just fickle enough that they pass soon after. But for example, David Platt's book, Radical. This is a book that trended heavily and was in the homes of millions of believers all over the West. And he mentions over and over and over again unreached people groups. This should be something that is in a general, normal conversation. I would encourage you, if you're watching here, get in touch with David. Get on with inreachglobal.org. Obviously, go to Issachar Initiative. All the links are up there. And start to understand, Google the 1040 window, okay? Understand the reality of lostness for those who do not have access to the gospel. For me, David, this is it's what I live and breathe. I'm actually on the road right now. I've been driving from Prescott, Arizona to Phoenix, yesterday to Southern California. I'm here at LAX right now, Los Angeles International Airport, headed to Dallas for just overnight, then back Northern California, and I'll be back in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where I live, in 5 days, and then back in China, where our ministry is, in 5 weeks from now. So I share with you that passion for unreached and unengaged peoples, and am excited for others to join in that passion and know the heart of God. And I'll just mention this lastly, because I think Jesus' heart has not changed, that he would leave the 99 safely tucked away, and for a time to reach the one, and in this case, 2 billion ones.
That's right. Yep. There's a term that I heard a while back, but count for zero is a great way to look at how we want our lives, all of our lives, to count for zero. But we really want to get to that stage in history where there's no place left. There really is no place left without the gospel. Every village, neighborhood, and high rise has a church. The gospel witness. There's not a single person on the face of the earth that doesn't have access to the gospel. They can pick up their phone. They can go on the internet.
Yeah.
They can turn on their television, turn on the radio, and they're going to hear
have access. Yeah. And we can do that. It's possible with technology. Yes. But again, it's a priority issue, right?
Yeah.
So, I would encourage those of you guys who are watching, again, go to Issachar Initiative, get in touch with David, find out the heart and passion behind Issachar Initiative and shared passionate with InReach Global for unreached people groups. And, David, we could keep talking about this all day, I'm sure. And we will, because I do want to be, if anything's said of my life at the end of it, I would like it to be said that I was an advocate for unreached people groups. And, however, I do need to catch a flight to Dallas. So, but I would love to reschedule and talk more. And
let's do it. Let's set up another time. That's great. I love to keep the conversation moving. The more people that are talking about this, the more that will be accomplished.
Yeah.
Hey, let's make everybody's life count for zero. That's what we're here for.
Amen. Well, I know your life counts for zero. How would you like for people to get in touch with you or Issachar Initiative? Go to the website, or is there somewhere else you'd like to direct them?
Well, certainly they can go to the website. Finishthetask.com is a great place to get update on the UUPG information. Laura Hedeveld and her team, they're finishing the task, keep those stats. That's where numbers have come from. That's a great place to look. People can contact me at David P for Pope, David P at IssacharInitiative.org.
Okay.
In any way I can help, we'd be glad to help. We just want to keep moving it forward as best we can.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking this time. I love talking to guys like you because it's easy to talk to you. We have such a shared vision and passion, and we're going to continue to be that voice for the voiceless. So, David, I really appreciate you joining me, and we'll have to do this again.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.